Well, it's a very good morning for some of you. It's a very good afternoon, and it's a very good evening as well to some of you, wherever you might be joining us live here or on your favorite streaming service. Welcome to the Coaching Cafe. My name is Natalie Ashdown from Open Door Coaching. And look, I've got Bridget Calvert with me here today, which is really
Hello, everybody. And yeah, absolutely excited to be here in person. So thank you, Nat, for the invitation. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today we're talking about managing strong emotions in coaching. It's a continuation of a series that we've been running, which is around real workplace scenarios in coaching. So if you'd like to catch up with those other scenarios we've been talking about, you can go to our blog. They're all sitting there for you to have a listen to or to have a bit of a read about as well. So this will be the last in our series, and then we're kicking off a new series after this. So we're really keen to share these ideas with you. So before we begin, let me acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, the waters, the communities of Australia, and the lands from all around the world from which you might be joining us today. We pay our respects to them, to elders past, present, and emerging, and elders from Indigenous communities from all around the world. And we have just done the weather check-in and the where are you dialing in from? And we've got Calgary, we've got Wellington, we've got Denver, Colorado represented. We've got up the road in Sydney and Brisbane and Surfers Paradise. So we've got Bali represented all around the world. So it's great that you can all join us, and we acknowledge that we are able to come together, and we're grateful to come together in this fashion. So today we are, as I said, talking about the real life topics in workplace coaching. We're going to think about other scenarios. And in particular today, it's about managing strong emotions. And I'll share with you a little bit about where this topic came from as well in just a moment. For you, those of you that are new to the Coaching Cafe, we say every week, welcome. We're all about creating a community, sharing learned experiences, having thought-provoking conversations together, and enhancing our own professional development, which we really love. If you are here for continuing coach education units, we have them available free of charge at the end of our session. And to the regulars, as always, thank you for coming back, and we always are very energized to catch up with you every week. And if you'd like to interact with us, please put your messages and your comments, as always, in the chat box. And today is a topic I think that we can all, as with our other topics, we can definitely relate to. So I'll be looking at that chat box and picking up your comments as we go along. So today we're thinking about our role as coaches, and we're thinking about what emotions we've actually seen in clients and how we manage those emotions. And I'm also thinking about the emotions that we might actually experience in coaching for ourselves whilst we coach. And that's why I wanted to bring Bridget along, with your nearly 20 years of experience in executive coaching, but also listening to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaching calls. You're not only experiencing the emotions, but you're hearing the emotions in those calls and the assessments through our certificate for in workplace and business coaching. So maybe, Bridge, I could kick it over to you, and please jump into the chat box here. I'm keen to ask that question. What emotions have you seen in clients over the years?
Yeah, and as you say, Nat, we've both been coaching for 20 years, plus now, and I think that it's quite a common experience, actually, to experience strong emotions when you're in a coaching session. And interestingly enough, the environment doesn't seem to impact either. I think because you're in a space where you're coaching, that one-on-one, and you're really focused on that person, and vice versa, you're both giving 100% to that conversation. Those strong emotions that come up because you've been able to sit in the space and think and reflect and talk and often about things that potentially you don't have the chance to talk about at other times. So you've really got an opportunity here to sit in the space and really think and consider and stretch your thinking. And in turn, that can bring up emotion that potentially has been pushed down or ignored, or we get so busy and what have you that we tend to push those things aside and we just get on with it. So it's not an uncommon thing to have people experience those strong emotions, even tears, those sort of tears that can come up as you're having those conversations. So be it in a quiet space or even, and certainly in my experience too, when you're coaching in cafes and some of those busier areas, it still happens because you're still in that bubble, that connection. And so that will happen. I think environment also is important to mention as well.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is, and I agree with you, Bridge, that strong emotions are normal in coaching for a couple of reasons. One, we actually hold that space for the person to be able to express themselves. So it's a trusting environment, it's a confidential environment, it's a psychologically safe environment. And because of that environment that we create and that holding of the space, it allows people to actually express their strong emotions, be they, emotions on one end of the scale, which could be joy or celebration or excitement, and then on the other end of the scale, which could be anger, frustration, etc. So we're going to see a range of emotions in our coaching, and they could be at the extremes and anywhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're trying to encourage the clients to be themselves, to have this opportunity to express what they need, and then we're going to hold that space, as you say, to allow them to do that.
I think that's really important. I think if you're going to immerse yourself in that coaching experience, bring 100% of yourself to the table, and by doing so, it allows you to then just be and experience what you need to experience in that moment. So I think it's really healthy.
Yeah, so in terms of what we have actually seen, I'm just thinking back over the last couple of weeks, what I've seen in the coaching. And as you say, it doesn't make a difference whether you're in a cafe or you're over the phone or you're coaching via Zoom or Teams or whatever it might be. So I have seen tears, and that's one of the reasons why we thought, let's talk about this, because tears can be quite common. So I've seen anger and frustration, and that pure, red hot frustration, throwing your hands up in the air. And at the other side of the coin, I have seen the joy, the celebration. I've seen quite a broad variety. What other kind of emotions have you kind of seen in the last couple of weeks?
All of that, everything in between. I think it's really all of it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've seen and heard the tears. I've heard that slight shift in tone as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be out and out tears, but it might be a shift in tone that you hear, or just the change of the speed of which someone's speaking, or the shake in the voice or something. So really being attuned to what's happening for that person and noticing what that represents in terms of emotion. So it may not be something so obvious, but really tuning into what you hear, I think, is important as well.
I think that's an excellent reminder, actually, Bridge, because it's not just what we're seeing, but it's actually listening and observing, and perhaps and giving feedback to the client that we notice a shift in energy, or for example, the common one I can think of straight up is very, very anxious, very fast speaking, and then through the coaching there's a calmness, there's a quietness, there's a reflectiveness that comes. So that is actually demonstrating a shift in motion, in emotions that's come from the coaching.
Absolutely. So, whilst I might have noticed things visually, whether that be on Zoom or face-to-face, I think I'm also listening to a lot of the audios and the coaching demonstrations too, and I often hear it in that, and it's wonderful to hear the coach pick up on what they're noticing in terms of the slight shift in tone, or what's happening for you at the moment. I'm noticing this is happening, or I'm noticing the change in your energy or the tone of your voice. And it's a demonstration of some emotion that's coming up for that person based on what they're reflecting on.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It does kind of make you smile when you hear the coaches in the doing that, because I love to listen like you do. I love to listen to good coaching, and that's really good coaching when they're picking up on those shifts, and we've talked a lot about that as well. So what about emotions that we are experiencing? Now, I remember, you remember back in my MCC, when I was originally trying to get my MCC, I failed one of my performance evaluations because and the comment was, the coach seems overly enthusiastic. So the coach is overly enthusiastic, and what they were suggesting actually from a feedback point of view is because I was excited for the client, I'm actually inserting myself into the coaching conversation. So Bridge, you might remember what I did is in my next recording, I did none of that.
Yes.
I did none of that. I really held back out of the space. And then what was the comment I got next? The coach doesn't seem like they're present. The coach doesn't seem like they care. The coach is not willing to express emotions and vulnerability for the client. And I'm like, well, what do we do here? So we had to find that kind of that I had to find that balance of feeling the emotions without inserting myself into the conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it is a fine line, isn't it? There's a fine balance as to, what are we inserting into the conversation, whilst at the same time wanting to be excited for our coachees and really embrace what they've been able to achieve and acknowledge what they've achieved. And I think if we, if we experience it from a perspective of, we're standing on the outside and we're looking in, and what are we noticing and what are we observing here? So I think it's important to acknowledge someone's achievements, absolutely, and I'm certainly one that does that. Maybe a little like you, that first recording that you've said that you put in, I get excited too. But I think it's important to highlight what you're noticing about it. I'm noticing that you're really thrilled about that achievement, or rather than I think it's great that you've done this, or so the language we use, I think, is really important in the moment, as well as being able to express the support.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask you, actually, because I take an approach of saying, well, I am so excited for you, but this is not about me. How do you actually feel about it, And so I've got to temper that, going, well, particularly when I see that they're not particularly super excited, it's like, why aren't you super excited?
Yeah.
But again, it's not about me. It's like, well, how are you feeling about this? I'm feeling excited for you, but how are you feeling about it? So you're putting it back to them.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. So it's what you're noticing and I guess eliciting from the person how they're feeling, about it, what they're saying to themselves about it, what they see for themselves, and really getting them to step into their own space and really experiencing and acknowledging how they feel about what's happening for them.
Yeah, because I think with those emotions like joy or excitement or thrilled or delight or whatever, I am thinking about scenarios where the client actually hasn't felt it or expressed it. So I'm feeling excited, but I want to know how they feel. And when you're coaching really super high achievers, they tend to say, yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm like, happy?
Yeah.
This is amazing. In my opinion, of course, it's not about me, but so what do you ever try, Bridge, to get a little bit more out of them than, oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Like I'm pleased.
Absolutely.
Like, really pleased? Is that the best you can do when you've achieved something that's real? I mean, maybe that is, but what do you think about that?
I do. I think it's really important to be able to elicit and get the client to acknowledge what they've actually achieved, because as I said earlier, we can tend to be so busy and we keep going and we don't actually experience how we feel about something or acknowledge ourselves for what we actually achieve. So being able to stop and sit in that for a moment and really experience what you've achieved here. What's the impact of that on you and your environment and what's going on around you, and what does it mean for you now that you've been able to achieve whatever it is that you've achieved? So really exploring, wow, what is that impact and what does it mean for me and how am I actually feeling about this? I think is really important for that, being able to build that self-confidence too, and really acknowledging what someone's achieved. So
and of course, on the other side of the coin, it's how we acknowledge strong emotions in clients when they are sad or angry or frustrated or very worried or very concerned. And I remember very early on in the piece, I used to say, you need to acknowledge the emotions, and I used to say, great. And it got picked up in a PCC or an MCC recording, and they said the coach is not aligned to the client. And I had to be very careful because what I was trying, my intention was to say, not great, you're feeling sad. My intention was to say, great that you are bringing this up and willing to share. And I want to honor the fact that you are being vulnerable and willing to share.
Yes.
So I was very, and have been since that many years ago it happened, but I've been very conscious to say, to acknowledge the sharing and what they're saying, rather than just saying, oh, great, like, oh, great, or well done. Like they're not quite the right words to be using here. So it's trying to express to the client what your intent is and what you're trying to share with them as a coach as well, your own vulnerabilities.
You're acknowledging the fact that they have acknowledged and expressed and they're sharing and what have you, rather than the great meaning, oh yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah,
or well
great
done.
that you brought that up, because it can be such a jarring thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Everyone's jumping in, which is great. Thanks for jumping in, Annie. She says, I find creating a steady paced, calm flow environment, combined with the opportunity for plenty of white space, the client allows themselves a space for contemplation and expressing whatever the emotions are in a safe zone. Yes, that is the key, isn't it? We're creating that psychologically safe place, the confidential space, and it might be the only opportunity they have to express these emotions, which I think is almost an honor that we're able to provide that with them, a privilege to be able to do that. And Stephen says, great point as well. So watching that our language and our own vulnerabilities match or reflect the client, as opposed to saying things that could be quite jarring as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking also about the ICF core competencies here as well. So everything we are talking about does fall into the ICF core competencies. And I was actually very pleased when I saw these competencies being rewritten. In the old days, the competency used to be creates intimacy and something or other. And in many cultures, that was kind of inappropriate. So now the core competency number 4 is around creates trust and safety. And it is actually everything we've been talking about. And the definition for those people that can't see it is it partners with the client to create that safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, and it maintains that relationship of mutual respect and trust. And for those of you that can't see the screen, I'm pointing out number 4.5 and 4.6 here. And the 4.5 says that we acknowledge and support the client's expressions of feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, and suggestions. And number 6 says we demonstrate openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client. So, Bridge, your thoughts on this is not just what we do, this is actually part of who we show up as a coach and part of the ICF core competencies that you would be listening for in a coaching demonstration as well.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what we're doing, isn't it? We're supporting the client's expression of feeling through staying out of that space and allowing that space for them to really digest and think about what's happening for them, and get really curious around their perceptions and their concerns and beliefs and what have you. So I think by honouring that space and allowing somebody to be able to express themselves in that way, whether it be because they're really happy about something or whether because on the other end of the scale they're challenged by something, allowing that space and really listening. I think that the active listening comes into this piece as well, in terms of really listening for what somebody is saying as well, which of course builds that trust and allows that safe space.
And I think the other thing we're thinking about here is also, this is all in line with the organisation's policies and procedures and our own ethics as well. So, if someone's expressing a strong emotion, which might be related to harm of self, harm of others, harm of the organisation, etc., then of course we would have a duty of care under ethics to raise that concern, to deal with that concern, etc. as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, yeah.
So the other core competency that I So this is built into all of our core competencies, or it built into everything that we do as a coach, including ethics, which I've just talked about. But the other element we're talking about, which is about maintaining presence, it's core competency number 5. And I actually think the ICF has done a much better job in defining what this means. Because I remember in the early days of MCC practice, it's like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
I think I am present, like I'm listening, I'm doing everything I need to, and then I get accused of not being present.
Yeah.
I remember pulling my hair out, not knowing what this actually meant. But the ICF have done a better job in describing what this means. And as you can see there, if you can read the screen, for those that can't, I'll let you know, it's remaining focused and observant and empathetic and responsive to the client. So this is what we're talking about. It's us remaining focused, observant, empathetic, and responsive to the client. At the same time, recognizing what's happening inside us, but it's the focus is on the client. Managing one's emotions to stay present with the client, I think, is a really good description of what we're doing. So we're feeling something, but we're managing our emotions to stay present with the client and not make it about us.
Yeah.
I do admit, though, when I might have said, look, I'm thrilled for you, but it's not about me. Let's talk about how you're feeling about this. So, and the other one is, so that's number 3, manages one's emotions to stay present with the client. And number 4 is demonstrates confidence in working with strong client emotions during the coaching process. So as I said, this is not just something that we see we see this in everyday workplace conversations, but it is built into our core competencies. And you would hear that as well, Bridge?
Absolutely. I think it's really, really important for us to be able to manage our own emotion when it comes to remaining present with that client. But also, I think our coaching skill comes into this as well, because if you're finding that someone is demonstrating strong emotion, whether it be anger or that below the line type of behavior, yes, we're staying out of space. Yes, we want to acknowledge. Yes, we want to listen and have that person be able to express what they're really feeling. And then what coaching skill are we also bringing into that conversation to support that person to not only be able to express, are we chunking that down, are we allowing that space, are we helping that person to reframe thinking? So what do we do? What's our skill? What are we contributing from a skill set point of view as well?
Yeah, I think that is really important, because the question I was going to ask you is, what does it mean to demonstrate confidence in this area? And I think you've already answered it in terms of, well, you're holding the space, you're not getting involved, and then you're confidently potentially doing a reframe or something like that. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
What demonstrates confidence?
Well, that's right. I think that, as a human being, of course, if we're listening to this, we might get caught up in the story and we get sort of sucked into that story, or we might be, expressing some sort of just buying into it. Whereas as the coach, of course, we're allowing that person to express themselves, and it's okay. And take your time.
Yes.
Express, what it is that you need to express, but also being aware of, what do I need to do next, in terms of, you allow the space, you allow the emotion, but essentially, what skill am I going to bring forward now to support this person to acknowledge, maybe to reframe, to bring them above the line, maybe to explore options. What is it that this person needs? How am I going to serve this person best based on what's happening for them in this very moment?
Yeah, I love all those. And you can hear the coaching questions jumping out, which is wonderful. And it comes back to that number 5, being comfortable working in a space of not knowing. And I have heard myself often, like you say in this regards, so your thoughts there, Bridge, I've actually shared. So what do you need right now, or how can I serve you best, or given what's happening, what would you like to do now?
That's right.
How would you like to take this forward? So we don't know necessarily, we're thinking about what skills we can bring, but I'm also happy in that unknown, going, well, I don't know what we're going to do with this now. So what would you like to do? Reconvene, continue, take a different line. I'm thinking about the strong emotions, which are kind of on the anger, frustration, tears side of it. Take a different line of thinking. continue exploring, as you said, being curious. Yeah, and Brett says here, as well as being empathetic, staying curious. Yeah, we really, yeah, man after our own heart there, yes. As well as being empathetic, staying curious to help the client understand what's happening for them. So, you know, when Brett says that, I can hear the coaching questions is, well, tell me what's happening for you. Help me understand what's happening for you. And in that might help them understand what's going on for them, exploring that further. Is it something they want to explore? What would you like to do with it? All those kind of questions.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. It's that, you know, what I almost sort of describe it or use the analogy of the fly on the wall. It's you know, just noticing what's happening and being able to facilitate for that person the next step through a curious question.
Yes.
What do you need?
Yeah, and you do that beautifully, Bridge, because it is us staying in that empathetic, curious, exploring space. We've heard that in the coaching demonstrations you've shared with us over the past few weeks as well. We're not trying to do anything here. We're literally holding the space, and we are allowing the person to feel what they want to feel. And then if it's client led, then it's allowing the client to actually set the direction of the conversation after that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, you know, unraveling that they want to unravel, if they want to unravel this further, if they want, they can, it's up to them. On the other side, I'm thinking about joy, and I'm thinking about a celebration. So obviously we're going to kick in some questions here about how have you celebrated? What does this mean to you? I love the questions around what have you learned from it? How are you going to build on this? What other kind of questions do you like to throw in there?
Absolutely. All of everything you just said. Yeah. What's the impact? What have you learned? What's changed for you now? What does it mean for you now that you've been able to achieve whatever it is? How will you build on those achievements? What's the next step? Where to from here? Absolutely. That real acknowledgement of, this is, you know, wonderful that you've been able to achieve this. So what's next for you now? You know, how you build on it?
I love those learning questions. It's like, well, what did you learn from it? How can you build on it? They're really exciting questions. I also like to ask a bit of so what's changed, do you think? Or what did you do differently? Like, it's giving me goosebumps even thinking about these questions, because you can hear in my voice, I'm excited for this, you know, but I'm excited for the person, and I'm excited to be asking the questions that's going to take this great achievement and perhaps move it forward as well. So what did you do differently, do you think, that made a difference here? Or
absolutely,
something like that? What strengths did you call upon?
Yes,
those kind of questions.
All of those questions. And in actual fact, those questions will also work on the other end of this spectrum as well. So if someone is experiencing a challenge, you know, what could you do differently next time? Or what strengths can you call upon to be able to? So, so those questions are wonderful for all sorts of emotions.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's a really great conversation. It is part of who we are as a coach. It is part of our ICF core competencies as well. It's a part of everyday workplace coaching scenarios. So I'm glad that you've all been able to join us and exploring what's happening for the client and how we might approach that with all these great coaching questions, and our coaching presence, and maintaining the space, allowing the space for silence, pause and reflection, but also on what's happening for us, bearing in mind, you know, you and I, Bridge, every now and again catch up and we express whatever's happening for us as well. So having a peer or a mentor or a supervisor or a trusted confidant who's also a coach, you know, we've done that over the years, so we look after ourselves as well, is always really important. So we really encourage everybody actually that, you know, to tap into someone, a peer, a trusted colleague, you know, tap into us if you need to debrief strong emotions in yourself or others. And I think that last comment, since it's was Are You OK Day yesterday, is to look after ourselves as coaches. You know, if we're not in the right headspace, if we're not feeling right, if we're reacting to something that's happening, then you know, we really want to look after ourselves as well. Yeah,
it's a very, very good point, especially when we're coaching. If we are actually supporting someone through emotions, that we're making sure that we're also looking after ourselves to after the fact as well, in the moment.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We have got a lot of things. These are points we've talked about: being genuine and authentic, holding the space, coachee led. So there's a little summary, looking after our mental health, and link back to competencies. I'm glad you liked that. And also, Lynn is saying the importance of looking after ourselves, traps to avoid, and sharing examples as well. Thank you. So we do have some Cert 4s and diplomas coming up towards the end of the year. There's a lot of coaching that's going on, mentor coaching, mediation. So if you have a need for that, of course, our leader is coach and our team coaching programs as well. Feel free to reach out as you go along as well. For now, we say thank you very much for joining us and enjoy your coaching.
Bye for now.